In this lesson, we are going to be talking about journals as historical records. For both historians and literary experts, journals are vitally important ways of learning about the past. This often involves a struggle with difficult handwriting, as you can see here, faded or damaged pages, personal abbreviations, and spelling or grammatical errors. It takes patience to investigate old journals, but the result is knowledge about and insight into people and events about which we would otherwise remain ignorant. Journals play an important part in allowing people to understand the past. Without this type of primary source, many of the aspects of a certain time period under study would be lost to us in the present. When reading journals, one must take into account several things, including the person writing the journals. Who was this person? What was their background, and how would that shape their view of society? You must also take into account the author's purpose. Sometimes journals were meant to be public, and sometimes they were meant to be private. Sometimes journals were written with the author very well knowing that someone else would read them. In some cases, people were required to write journals as proof of a journey. Another thing to take into account is the author's attitude towards the content. Since journals are someone else's personal thoughts, as a reader you must always be asking yourself this question. Did the author write down these events exactly as they occurred? Did they add or leave anything out? Did their own personal opinions and purpose make them change or record anything differently? When reading journals, one must really take into account in journals, as in other texts, the reader can focus on the description and images that a writer chooses to include as a way to get insights into people and events from the past. Especially with travel journals where the author was on a journey, the descriptions they create of people and places can give us, in the future, important insights into society that might otherwise be lost. Think about how you would describe this river dependent on your purpose. If you were describing it to someone who had never seen it before, how would that be different to someone who wanted to know what the wildlife was like? The pattern of organization of a journal can also play a role for the reader. Most journals will be organized in chronological or time order. Pay attention to how often entries are dated. If a date is missing or a long chunk of time is missing, ask yourself why that has occurred and if you can learn anything from it. In this lesson, we will be reading journals from two separate authors about many of the same events. While reading, pay attention to each author's style of writing, including their word choice, sentence formation and length, and their use or non-use of figurative language. What can you learn about each author from their writing style? Does one writer's style make the text more interesting than the other? Often, writing style comes from the author's purpose and is linked to that aspect of writing.